Hey, what's up guys? AirsoftMan819 here again with another Atari controller review. This is my second Atari controller review, and this is going to be a much more positive video than my previous video on the original Atari 2600 joystick. As you guys know, I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say about the original Atari 2600 joystick. I believe it's a fairly unresponsive and unreliable design, and I stand by that. But this is going to be a positive review on a controller I would highly recommend over the Atari 2600 joystick. This is my personal favorite joystick to play Atari games with. Now, these are not easy to find. This is called a Kraft Mazemaster, I believe is what it's called. I think Kraft made a few different joysticks similar to this with different names, but I think this individual one here is called the Mazemaster. I really don't know a whole lot about Kraft. I don't know if they made other products, but I do know that they made joysticks for game consoles and computers. And this is a joystick that was not only marketed for the Atari, but it was also marketed for several model of 8-bit computers from the day. Primarily the Atari computers and the Commodore 64. But this is a very nice joystick. It uses one of the most unique designs that I've ever seen in a joystick. Most joysticks from this era were either contact, like the Atari joystick that I reviewed, which contact are the bottom of the bin joysticks because the metal contacts are very unreliable and they wear out, and they tend to be much cheaper and lower quality. Then you have micro switch joysticks, which are pretty much arcade quality, and then you have, which micro switches are little mechanical switches, kind of like in a mechanical keyboard. They're very clicky and responsive, and they last for a very long time. Matter of fact, I have a micro switch joystick for the Atari that I'm going to be reviewing. But this is somewhere in its own category. It does not use contacts. It does not use micro switches. It actually uses these little spring-loaded switches, and there's 4 of them, one on each side of the joystick. Every time you move the joystick, you're pushing on one of the switches. And they don't click or anything, but they are spring-loaded, so it makes the joystick self-centering, almost like a modern joystick. And it's very tight and very responsive. And it's very small, as you can see. It's not nearly as big as the joystick of the Atari. Matter of fact, the Atari 2600 joystick made by Atari is actually bigger in almost every other way. But you can see the joystick portion is much, much smaller. Which it looks kind of goofy, and and it's not really practical to play it the traditional way. With the Atari joystick, you would kind of hold it in your hand and wrap your hand around it and wrench it like this. That does not really apply to this joystick very well because there's really not a whole lot to hold on to. It's just this tiny little stub. The way to play this joystick, you either hold it like this and grab it with 2 fingers, which some of my buddies like to play it like this. But me personally, I actually use it like a traditional controller. I'll actually hold it with 2 hands, thumb on the button, and I'll actually put my thumb on the very top of the joystick and play it like a modern joystick, which this is my preferred way of playing. And it's very responsive, so much more responsive than the original Atari. It's not even funny. It's got this really boring tan and black thing going on here. I don't know why they decided to make it this color, but it looks boring. It looks like it's definitely 80s. That's for damn sure. It's got a much longer wire than the original Atari. It's got about a 6.5, 7-foot wire, which means you can sit comfortably on the couch and still play Atari. That way you're not actually tethered to the console. Uses the standard 9-pin connection. And one thing that makes this very interesting is it's 2 modes. It actually has a 4-way and an 8-way mode. And personally, I can't tell a huge difference between the two, but 4-way is what I prefer for the Atari. I think 8-way might have been more beneficial for computers that had more complex games. But the 4-way is what I typically use for Atari, and that's really all you need. But for some reason, when I have it set on 4-way, the joystick is very fluid and very, the movement is unrestricted, and for some reason when I switch it on 8-way, the movement feels kind of crunchy and restricted, and the joystick doesn't quite move as far. It might have been made that way for more precise movements on more complex games, but I really don't use it. I just keep it switched on 4-way, which is what I would recommend for the Atari at least. Like I said, it might be different on different consoles or different home computers. One thing I don't like about it is the fact there's only 2 screws holding it together. It makes it creak quite a bit from side to side. Makes it creak, which makes it feel a little less quality than the Atari brand joysticks. The Atari brand joysticks are built like tanks, and you could beat someone to death with them and it wouldn't hurt them. But this doesn't quite feel like that. It feels a bit more flimsy because it only has 2 screws holding it together. Why they made that design choice, I don't know, but that's just what they did. You have your single button here on this one. It's spring-loaded. It doesn't click or anything, and it uses a similar type of contact, similar spring-loaded contact that the rest of the joystick uses. And the button's responsive, works fine, no problems. The only issue I would have with it is I hit it straight in the middle, so it doesn't bother me, but it is square, and it's kind of got these little sharp edges, so if you kind of hit it at the wrong angle, it might poke your finger. I would definitely recommend this joystick over the Atari brand. And if I'm just chilling at my house and I want to kick back and play some Atari, this is the joystick I pick up. And all of my friends prefer this joystick because it's very easy to use. It's very easy to play it in a more modern way. Like when you're playing Xbox 360, for instance, you put your thumb on top of the joystick, which most people my age and younger are used to playing with their thumb on top of the joystick instead of holding it in their hand. Because when you play Xbox 360, you don't do this or this. You do this. And it just feels more natural to hold it in your hands like this and play like this on the Atari than it is to grab it and wrench it around like the older joystick. So, I don't know, maybe older people might prefer the traditional Atari joystick, but for me, this is much higher quality, on the inside at least, and much more responsive. But there is a catch. Not only are these pricey, they're also rare. I could only find about 4 or 5 of them on sale on eBay, which might sound like a lot, but considering you can find a few hundred of the old ones on sale on eBay, I can only find 4 or 5 of these. And almost all of them were priced at $20 or more because they are very rare, and I don't know if they're sought after or not, but they must be for the price that people ask for them because I've seen some of them sell for up to $50. Why, I don't know. But they're not exactly the easiest to find. So if you're able to snag one of these pretty cheap, I would definitely recommend it because it's definitely much better than the original Atari 2600 joystick. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later.